Take a slow, deep breath, and let it go. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, your eyelids grow heavier. Whatever the day held, whatever thoughts are lingering, let them drift away now, like small pieces of paper carried on the wind. You're safe here. You're warm. Let the quiet sound of your breath rise and fall like the ocean tide, soft and rhythmic. Inhale deeply through your nose and exhale gently through your mouth. Feel the comfort of your blankets around you, the stillness of the room, and the gentle rhythm of words that will carry you now into a place far away in time, yet soft and still as a dream. Our story tonight sets sail in the year 1912, aboard a vessel so large it was called unsinkable, a floating city made of riveted steel and humming machinery RMS Titanic. But we will not walk through the grand halls lit by crystal chandeliers, or dine under the golden light of first-class lounges. No, we are going below, far below, past the echoing metal staircases, past the chatter of passengers and the quiet conversations of stewards, down into the belly of the ship where no orchestra played and no starlight reached. There, in the heat and the dark, labored the workers' men of smoke and sweat, whose names were not remembered in newspaper headlines. You will meet them tonight. Let yourself imagine the sound first, the deep groaning pulse of the ship's engines like a heartbeat beneath your feet, the steady churning of pistons, the hiss of steam, the thump of metal tools against iron. In the stokeholds, the temperature often rose above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The air was thick with coal dust, clinging to eyebrows and lungs alike, and still they worked. With stripped sleeves and soaked undershirts, firemen, also known as stokers, shoveled coal into the ever-hungry furnaces that powered Titanic's 29 boilers. There were hundreds of them working in round-the-clock shifts in a rhythm that never ceased. Each man had a job to do and barely space to do it in. Some were trimmers, whose task was to level and feed coal to the firemen, crawling through the coal bunkers with shovels and baskets. They moved in shadows, guided only by the soft orange light of the furnace doors. Their faces were blackened, their hands blistered, but their movements were fluid, practiced, and deliberate. They didn't talk much, it was too loud and too hot. But sometimes one man would hum softly, a low tune that floated between the roar of flames and the clang of iron, the sound, like the breath of the ship, pulsed all around. The walls down here were always warm, not the gentle warmth of the sun through curtains, but the stifling, smothering heat of a room without windows. Steam coiled around the ankles. Ash drifted through the air like snow made of grit. The workers tied rags over their mouths or wetted handkerchiefs to block the soot. Every so often, a fresh blast of heat would erupt as another furnace door swung open, revealing the dancing fire inside. It wasn't beautiful to them. It was the job. It was survival. There were small moments, though, that softened the hardness. A tin cup of water passed between weary hands, a whispered joke while wiping sweat from one's brow, the cool relief of a brief step into the corridor, where the air wasn't quite so thick. Some of the workers had photographs folded in their shirt pockets, faded images of wives and children back home. Some were just boys, lying about their age to earn a seaman's wage. Others had worked the engine rooms of ships for years, their muscles trained by labor, their minds quieted by repetition. Above them, the Titanic carried dreams, honeymooners, aristocrats, families headed for a new life in America. But these men weren't dreamers. They were the ones who made the dreams move forward. Every rotation of the propeller, every flicker of electric light, every warm bath drawn in first class, it all started here in the roar and sweat of the engine room. And yet, it wasn't only firemen. There were greasers and engineers, mechanics and electricians. The greasers kept the moving parts oiled, slipping between machinery with quiet precision, lanterns swinging gently on hooks. The chief engineer, Mr. Joseph Bell, was a man of respect stern, but fair, known to walk among the men and check each valve with care. His word was law, but his presence brought calm. Under his watch, the heartbeat of the ship stayed steady, its rhythm constant against the vast quiet of the Atlantic. And then, of course, there were the cabin boys. Young, often no older than 16, they worked in service, delivering messages, polishing brass, fetching water for washing. If they were lucky, they might catch a glimpse of sunlight on deck during a chore. But often they lived in the half-lit maze of hallways and supply closets, learning quickly how to stay invisible, how to move silently between classes, between worlds. For these men and boys, the Titanic was not a marvel. It was a job site. It was a shift schedule and a bedroll and a fire shovel. They did not walk the decks in tailored suits. They slept in shared quarters, bunks stacked 3 high. The walls sweated condensation from the warm pipes. The smell of coal never left their clothes. And yet they took pride in their work, pride in the power beneath their feet. The engines, 3 of the largest steam turbines ever installed in a ship, were kept alive by their hands. Each push of coal, each lever turned, each bolt checked. Without them, Titanic would be still and silent. But the silence would come, and when the iceberg scraped across her side that cold April night, it wasn't the passengers who knew first. It was the workers. The men below heard the shudder ripple through the hull. They felt the sudden pause in the engines, the confused shift in pressure. Some thought it was a drill. Others knew better. Orders came swiftly. Doors were sealed. Boilers were shut down. And water, cold and black, began to seep in. Still, they worked. Many stayed behind, refusing to abandon their posts, keeping the power running so that lights would shine longer, pumps could drain, messages could be sent. Not for glory, not for medals, but because they were workers, and the ship needed them. And now, as you rest, soft and still, let their story settle around you. Let the hum of the engines lull you. Let the soft heat of the furnaces warm you, but never scorch. Imagine the rhythm of shovel to coal, coal to fire, fire to steam, and steam to motion. A cycle that turned steel through the sea until the sea itself reached back and claimed the cycle as its own. You are safe. You are warm. The story will continue. But before the cold reached their knees, before the tilt of the ship made walking strange and strained, before the panic spread like fire through the passenger decks above, there had been a kind of rhythm in the bowels of the Titanic, a hypnotic familiarity. One man shoveling while another trimmer prepped the next pile of coal, the soft whistle of steam escaping somewhere out of sight. Even the shifts moved like clockwork, 4 hours on, 8 hours off, and yet many didn't sleep deeply, not really. In a ship of that size, sound was constant. Metal groaned, chains shifted, and sometimes things moved that shouldn't. A shovel clattered from a hook. A door creaked open with no breeze. But these were ordinary mysteries, never questioned. A tired body didn't fear shadows. It simply laid down and drifted. The sleeping quarters were simple. Narrow bunks, thin blankets, and the ever-present scent of warm machinery. Pipes ran along the ceiling, sometimes dripping. Boots were tucked beneath pillows, a habit learned from losing them too many times to the shuffle of others. Men would lie back, arms behind their heads, and listen not to silence, for there was none but to the breathing ship around them. That constant motion, constant noise became a lullaby. There was comfort in the predictability of it. Even the heartbeat of engines was something like reassurance. If they were working, then everything was working. Sometimes in those quiet hours, stories were told. Not loud, never rowdy, just murmured between bumps. Tales of home, of Liverpool, of missed children, or of strange jobs on strange ships before this one. Some men had crossed oceans 10 times over, never once seeing the decks where the rich walked. Others were on their first voyage, eyes still wide even in the dark. The Titanic was unlike anything most had ever seen. The sheer scale of it, the size of the furnaces, the height of the bulkheads. It felt more like a city than a ship, and yet they never forgot it floated, that all of it iron, coal, fire, and human lives was suspended by water and time. And yet, while the firemen worked in heat, another kind of coal was always close, just a bulkhead away. The Atlantic, dark and endless, pressed against the ship like a sleeping giant. The metal of the hull separated them by inches from a world of freezing silence. And in some places, especially near the bow, you could hear it, the gentle moan of the sea, like breathing, like the ship exhaling. There were superstitions, too. Every ship had them. Some men wouldn't whistle down below. It was said to summon bad winds. Others carried lucky trinkets in their pockets. A coin from their wedding day, a button from a brother's jacket, a bit of string tied a certain way. The older men nodded silently at these rituals, never mocking. The sea was vast, and the engines were loud, but everyone knew there were things beyond knowing out here. And sometimes, in the quiet moments before a shift, a man might find a corner of peace, a ledge near a porthole, if one could be found, or a step just out of the way where he could close his eyes and pretend he was on land, that the hum he heard was not machinery but bees, that the heat came not from flame but from sunlight. The mind, when exhausted, becomes a theater, and dreams played strange shows in the heads of Titanic's workers. But the dreams changed when the cold came. When the collision happened, it was not with a scream, but a sound like tearing. Not a violent jolt, but a groan, long and low, like the ship herself sighing. Some men felt it in their bones before they heard it. Others paused mid-shovel, turning their heads toward the sound that didn't belong. Then came orders, calm at first. Close bulkhead doors, shut down boiler rooms, switch to emergency systems. The workers, trained to respond without question, obeyed. Valves were turned. Fires were damped. Some men in Boiler Room 6 noticed water at their boots in minutes. It wasn't panicked, not yet, but it was fast, too fast, and even then many stayed. Firemen, knowing the tilt of the ship would worsen without counterbalance, kept working to buy time. Time for passengers to find boats. Time for messages to be set. Greasers kept oiling. Engineers watched gauges that no longer mattered. There was no mass exodus below decks. There was, instead, a kind of resignation, a quiet understanding. Cabin boys ran messages up narrow stairways, their feet echoing on metal steps. Some were turned back, some made it. Others stayed, helping gather blankets or carry old men to lifeboat stations. No one asked them to do more, but they did. Above, the world panicked, but below, it was quiet. The engines had stopped. The furnaces had gone dark. Only the water moved now, spreading slowly, licking at steel and boots and ankles. One by one, the men disappeared from the manifest, not because they fled, but because they remained, holding the fire, holding the line, and so now, as you lie still, the warmth of your blankets around you like a soft cocoon. Think of those workers not in fear or sadness, but in peace. Let their labor be like gentle waves rocking your thoughts to stillness. The hum of the engine now is only a memory, echoing gently through your imagination. You are safe. You are calm. You are drifting like the ship once drifted, across a quiet sea under starlight. Let your breath follow the rhythm of the oars. Let your thoughts quiet like ash falling to the floor. You are not alone. You are surrounded by stories, and this one will gently carry you a little further still. There is something deeply soothing about routine, even in the most brutal of environments. The firemen on the Titanic had their rituals, not written in books, but carved into muscle memory and shaped by repetition. Wake, splash your face with cold water from a basin bolted to the wall. Roll up your sleeves, tie the same cloth over your mouth and nose. Check your boots. Then down the narrow stairwell to the boiler rooms, where the glow of the furnaces greeted you like dawn in a place without windows. The door opened and the heat rolled out, not hostile, just expectant. You could feel the heartbeat of the ship again, already beginning to rise with every loaded shovel. Even now, you might imagine yourself there, not as a visitor, not as a passenger, but as a worker among them. The smell of iron, the sting of coal dust in your eyes, the sound of men breathing in sync, working not because they were watched, but because the work itself demanded it. Everything on the Titanic that gleamed, everything that glittered above, depended on what was happening here in the dark. And it wasn't chaos. It was a kind of calm, a focus so deep it drowned out thought. Shovel, step, toss. One rhythm. And sometimes, just sometimes, one of them would glance at the little clock bolted near the doorway. Not out of boredom, but to mark the passing of something that could not be seen from below. Time itself. Time had a different texture down here. There were no bells to signal meals, no sunlight to track across the deck. Time became how many times you'd stoked the furnace, how often the trimmer passed with the next load, how much sweat had soaked through your shirt. In the boiler room, minutes stretched like molten metal, and hours slipped by like coal sliding down the chute. Some found peace in it, in this ritual. One fireman named Samuel Noe, who no one knew his last name, not really used to hum hymns while he worked. He had a voice so low it could almost be mistaken for the rumble of the engines. Others joined in, not with words, but with a soft shuffle of boots, or a nod in rhythm with a shovel. It wasn't music in the formal sense, but it filled the space like incense comforting, faint, steady. In a place with no windows, even sound became light. And when the shifts changed, there was no formal ceremony, just a change in movement. A trimmer would pass the next man without speaking. leaving his shovel standing upright in the coal heap as if handing off a baton in a silent race. Someone would climb up the metal stairs, his legs aching, lungs blackened with soot, eyes squinting from the furnace light. At the top, he would wipe his face with a rag that never really came clean and exhale, not in frustration, but in release. That was his time now, and for the next 8 hours he would rest, not always asleep, but always still. The mess rooms were plain wooden benches, metal cups, and bread that had grown tough in the sea air. Sometimes tea, sometimes a boiled potato. Laughter was rare, but not absent. Someone would mutter a joke. Another would snort softly. But mostly the men ate like machines winding down, quiet and methodical. You could hear the chewing. You could hear the hum of the pipe overhead. And sometimes, if you sat long enough, you could even hear the sea not roaring, but whispering, pressing ever so gently against the hull. Those who had worked on other ships said the Titanic was different, not just because it was grander or larger, but because of the strange stillness it carried. Even when the engines were roaring, the ship moved so smoothly that many forgot they were at sea. You could walk a hallway and hear your own footsteps echo. You could pause and feel the faintest sway underfoot, not a rock, not a lurch, just a reminder that beneath all this steel was an ocean older than anything man had ever built. And in the few hours between shifts, when the body finally allowed itself to rest, dreams came quickly. They weren't elaborate. Often they were just fragments, a kitchen, a field, the face of someone long missed, or the rhythmic sound of a furnace door opening and closing, continuing in the mind even after sleep had arrived. Some men talked in their sleep, muttering names or instructions. Others lay silent, mouths slightly open, breathing in the thick air like it was smoke from a fire they had finally left behind. But peace was a delicate thing on ships, especially one so vast. Even as the passengers danced above, as champagne glasses clinked and orchestras played Viennese waltzes, the workers below lived in a different world. A world of steel, fire, and unseen effort. And sometimes word would trickle down from above. A steward passing through, a cook whispering something strange, that the wireless room had received messages, that other ships had seen ice, that the temperature had dropped. But these warnings meant little to men who could not see the sky. The cold didn't reach them, not until it was too late, so they kept working, kept moving in rhythm, kept feeding the fires. Let that image linger for a moment, a world below the world, a ballet of coal and sweat and silent endurance, a chamber of shadows lit only by the light of flame, the calm within the labor, the pause before the change. You are drifting now, the way the Titanic once did, cutting through the sea like a sleeping whale, unaware of the shape beneath the waves. You are safe here. The work is not yours to do. You are only the dreamer now, the quiet observer. Let the warmth of the engine rooms surround you like a blanket. Let the sound of the shovels become your lullaby, and rest. There was a kind of trust built into the routine below decks. Not in words, but in motion. One man passed the shovel, another took it without looking. A glance was enough. A nod meant, "I'm here now," and that was everything. No one needed long introductions or shouted instructions. The work spoke for itself, and in the hum of the furnaces, in the deep-bellied groan of the engines, The men became more than individuals. They became part of the ship's rhythm, moving in step with its power, as if the steel bones of the Titanic had accepted them as its own beating heart. You can almost feel that rhythm now, can't you? A steady warmth in your chest, that comforting pull of repetition, the soft clang of a shovel meeting the deck, the low throb of steam building behind a thick iron wall, and underneath it all, the pulse of the ocean, always there, always moving. Sometimes the men caught glimpses of the world above, on a short errand or repair job, delivering a message, a brief step into the linen-bright corridors of second class, or the echoing marble of the first-class atrium. It was like walking into a painting, strange, quiet, untouchable. The people there smelled of perfume. Their shoes clicked cleanly on the tile. Their faces carried no soot, no sweat. The workers didn't linger. They moved quickly and returned below, slipping back into the familiar shade of their world. They didn't resent the passengers, but they didn't envy them either. Above might have held chandeliers. Below held something stronger: familiarity, brotherhood, a place to be useful. There were moments of beauty even there. A breeze catching the edge of a vent and whistling a soft, mournful tune. The way the firelight danced off the curved metal of the pipes like gold melted into rippling waves. The occasional sound of footsteps from above, muffled by layers of steel-like ghosts passing through a distant world. Even the hiss of steam, constant and faithful, became a kind of music if you let your thoughts slow down enough to hear it. And they did slow down, the thoughts, especially near the end of a shift, when your muscles were tired and your breath was slow and even. It was a trance almost, a quiet place within the noise. Many of the men didn't talk about it, but they knew it well. The moment where the body knew exactly what to do, and the mind could drift to memories of home, to smells that no longer existed down here, to names they hadn't spoken aloud in months. In this way, the engine room was both furnace and cathedral, hot and loud, but sacred in its own way, a place where the self dissolved into purpose. Even now, lying here, eyes soft and heavy, you can feel the weight of that purpose. Not as a burden, but as something grounding, something simple and known. You do not have to think. You do not have to act. You only listen. Let your thoughts trail like smoke into the dark above the furnace door. Let your breath move like the ocean swell deep and slow. And yet everything changed when the cold finally came. It was a foreign thing at first, an unwelcome guest. The air in the corridor grew damp, almost sharp. Not icy, not yet. Just strange. Like a window had opened somewhere that should never have opened. Then came the vibration, a hum that didn't match the engine's rhythm. Something out of tune. A scraping that echoed through the hull like a giant's fingernail across glass. Then silence. Not full silence, but the absence of expected sound. The engines stopped. The pumps held still. A heartbeat missed. Men paused. Tools were set down. Someone shouted. Someone ran. But not everyone moved. Some stayed at their posts, waiting, watching, trusting the steel to speak next. Then came the orders. Some were shouted down staircases. Others relayed by stewards. Close the watertight doors. Shut down the boilers. Move aft. But the men knew, almost without being told. They saw the tilt begin. They heard the change in the ship's voice. The Titanic no longer hummed with confidence. She groaned. She leaned. She exhaled. In Boiler Room 5, the water came quickly. A rush, like a wall breaking. The floor disappeared under it. Fire hissed and died. Steam filled the chamber, clouding vision, soaking clothes. One man slipped. Another reached out and caught him. Neither said a word. Not all ran. Some couldn't. Some wouldn't. To keep the lights on, someone had to stay. Without power, there would be darkness. Without darkness, there would be panic. And so they stayed feeding the last of the coal, knowing it bought only minutes. But minutes in a crisis are more than gold. They are lifeboats, they are messages, they are prayers. It is here, in these final acts, that the truest shape of duty shows itself, not in grand gestures, but in quiet persistence, in choosing to do the work even when no one sees, even when no one remembers. And now you remember. In your quiet room, wrapped in blankets, breathing slow and safe, you carry their memory like a soft ember, not with sadness, but with warmth. Let it rest in your chest like a flickering coal. Let the story dim into soft ash. Let the sound of water slow to stillness. The ship is quiet now. The work is done. You are drifting on calm seas. No storms, no cold. Just the warmth of their labor wrapped gently around you, like the slow turning of the ocean itself. There's a strange stillness that follows effort, the kind that comes not from idleness, but from having given all of yourself to something greater. That was the stillness that settled over the engine rooms once the fires were extinguished. The roar of the furnaces, once ever present, faded into memory. The endless clang of shovels against metal, the hiss of steam, the throb of pistons, all quiet now. What remained was the sound of slow water and tired breath. The ship had begun to list, gently but unmistakably, tilting the floor underfoot. But the men who remained did not stumble. They adapted. They knew ships and they knew balance. Even as the Titanic leaned toward her fate, they stayed upright. And still, in small ways, they worked. Some turned valves to redirect water, delaying the inevitable. Others helped clear corridors so passengers above could pass more easily. One greaser named Frederick made 6 trips to bring lanterns to darkening stairwells, each time knowing fewer would follow. A few younger firemen attempted to carry messages, some successful, others lost to the cold. But none cried out, none screamed. There was a quiet dignity in their movement, a slow, calm resolve like monks tending to a final ritual. Above, the world was shifting into chaos. But below, time stretched again. Minutes lasted longer. The silence felt heavier. In that strange interval, between the end of work and the final call, there was reflection. A man leaned against a bulkhead and rubbed the coal from his face with the sleeve of his shirt. Another unbuttoned the top of his uniform and closed his eyes for a moment, just to remember what it felt like to breathe without heat. In the half-light, their faces seemed carved from stone. Tired, yes, but peaceful in a way only those who understand acceptance can be. There were no clocks now, no shifts. No sound but the distant, irregular creaks of steel under pressure. And beneath even that, the deep, enveloping quiet of the Atlantic. It was a silence unlike any found on land thick, old, endless. A sound that seemed to come from inside the bones of the world. Some men went topside, others did not. Some helped lower lifeboats or carry passengers to safety. One stoker guided a child to the upper deck, lifting her like a sack of flour, cradling her not roughly, but securely. He didn't wait for thanks. He simply turned and went back below. It wasn't about heroism. It was just what needed to be done. And here, in the depths of this ship, in its belly of steel and soot, the line between labor and legacy blurred. These men did not build the Titanic. They did not own it. Their names weren't etched in plaques or announced in salons, but they became it. They were its heat, its power, its motion. When the lights above sparkled like stars in a ballroom, it was because of them. When the ship sliced through the sea, it was their sweat that fueled the cut. Even in her final hours, as the electricity flickered and wires hummed in their dying breath, their labor carried the ship forward, if not through water, then through time. You can feel that now, can't you? Not the panic or the cold, but the presence, the human weight of it. Men standing in shadows, knowing what comes, but meeting it not with fear, but with stillness. The warmth in your chest is their gift. The calm you feel is the echo of their resolve. And though the ship began to groan, an awful, low sound as metal strained against its limits, their faces remained steady. Some braced themselves, others rested. One man whispered a prayer, not loudly, but with the quiet of someone who did not expect to be heard, only released. It was not desperation. It was a kind of grace. And in those final moments, as the cold crept in and the walls began to shiver, it was warmth that mattered most. Not of fire, but of memory, of closeness, a hand on a shoulder, a glance held a second longer than usual, a nod that meant, I see you. I know you were here. The ocean was near now. You could feel it in the floor. In the walls, it wasn't angry. It was inevitable. Soft, steady, overwhelming, and above them, stars. For those who emerged into the open air at last, the night sky was clear beyond imagination. The kind of black that made even the largest ship feel like a toy. The kind of stars that stretched so far they seemed alive, watching, listening, waiting. And for a moment, just one, the noise fell away, and the Titanic floated under heaven, lit from within, humming with memory. Now, as you lie here in your own silence, imagine the sea calm once more, the engines long since quiet, the tools laid down, the fire gone out. But the warmth remains in you, in this story, in the knowing. You are resting now in a cradle of steel and starlight, safe, still, and so very far from the noise of the day. Let your breath slow once more. Let your heartbeat follow the rhythm of the deep. The men have done their work. The ship has given all she could. And you are drifting peacefully, wrapped in memory, embraced by sleep. Time becomes soft in the deep hours of the night, not measured by clocks or footsteps or orders shouted down metal corridors, but by the drift of breath, the hush of stillness, the slow dimming of thought. For those on board the Titanic who remained awake, especially below deck, this was the quietest hour. Not by sound, there was always the whisper of shifting bulkheads, the creak of strained steel, but by feeling. A heaviness that settled over the heart like fog. The moment when even the brightest soul understood there was nowhere left to go but inward. And so it was that many of the men below turned their attention, at last, to memory. With nothing left to lift or carry, they carried themselves inward toward a mother's kitchen, the smell of baking bread, toward a child's laughter echoing down a garden path, toward laughter in a pub or the sound of waves on the shore, long before this voyage began. The firemen who had stoked the Titanic's heart were now stoking something gentler, a warmth that could not be extinguished by water or time. The few who remained together did not speak much. Words were unnecessary, and the engines no longer roared to drown them out. They sat or stood in quiet postures, lit by the faintest orange emergency glow. Some leaned back against pipes still warm from earlier hours. Others closed their eyes and exhaled. It was not fear that held them still. It was surrender, not the giving up kind, but the sacred kind, the kind that recognizes when the work is done, and all that's left is to bear witness. Above them, the ship was groaning more often now. Cables strained, rivets popped like firecrackers in the dark. Somewhere a piano slid across a room, but below the men didn't flinch. They listened. They allowed. They were no longer part of the machine. They had become the memory of it. Their bodies no longer moved with rhythm. They rested, and in doing so, anchored the ship to something real, something human. It is here, in this final moment of stillness, that we learn the most about dignity, about grace, not from grand speeches or acts of bravery, but from the way a man folds his arms gently across his chest, the way he breathes once more with purpose, the way he closes his eyes, not in fear, but in peace. And peace did come, even as water reached the lower levels and lapped against the soles of boots, even as the ship tilted further and panic grew above. Down here in this pocket of quiet resolve, the air grew stiller. The steam no longer hissed. The fires no longer snapped. It was like the ship herself was bowing, giving thanks to the hands that had kept her alive for so long. The Titanic, mighty and proud, was carried in the hearts of these men until her final breath. They did not scream. They did not flee. They did not curse the sea. They waited with honor. Outside, lifeboats lowered into frigid blackness. Children wept. Officers barked orders. The wireless room flickered with Morse code. But none of that reached the men below. Their time had already slowed to near stillness. What mattered now were the final moments, how they sat, how they held one another's gaze, how they accepted. And as the water rose, they did not struggle. Some stood, eyes closed. Others whispered names of wives, brothers, sons. Some kissed a cross around their neck or held onto a picture curled at the edges. But all stayed still. All remained present, and in doing so left behind a silence far greater than any scream. The ship would soon break. Its body would shatter. Its lights would go out. But this quiet below, this soft sigh of human courage, would ripple forever. And now, here you are, warm, safe, still. Your breath soft and even, your body relaxed, your thoughts like drifting silk, untethered. Let this story stay with you, not as sadness, but as light. Let the memory of those men become the weight that grounds your sleep. Let their silence calm your pulse. Let their final rest become your own. Breathe in slowly and out, and imagine the deepest part of the ocean, not as cold, but as calm, as a blanket, as a cradle. The Titanic sleeps there now, not wrecked, not ruined, just resting, remembered. And you, too, are resting. Let yourself drift further now. You've heard the story. You've walked the stairs. You've stood in the heat, and you've breathed the engine room song. And now, you are ready to float gently into sleep. The ocean, in the end, holds all stories. It is not cruel. It is not kind. It simply keeps. And as the Titanic slipped deeper into its embrace, the sea did what the sea has always done. It received. Not with anger, not with haste, but with the slow patience of centuries, as if it understood what it was taking and promised to carry it gently. When the great ship finally broke apart, there was no announcement, no trumpet, just a deep groan of metal, like a tree bending too far in a storm, followed by silence. It was the kind of silence that vibrated more than echoed, a silence you could feel in your ribs if you were close. And the sea, so dark it felt like velvet, swallowed her piece by piece. Decks crumbled inward, lights flickered, railings bent, and then for a time there was only stillness again. A soft churn of bubbles, a drift of soot and ash, and then nothing at all. But nothing, as you know, isn't always empty. The memory of those final minutes lingers not in the headlines or the tales told above, but in the quiet spaces between breaths. Down in the depths, where the firemen worked, the ocean has preserved a chapel of steel and silence. The engine rooms, though torn and twisted by time, still hold their shape. Boilers rest where they fell. Wrenches lie beside open valves. A shovel, long since claimed by rust, leans eternally against a broken pipe. The world above has forgotten these things, but the deep has not. And now you're drifting there, not in fear, not in sorrow, but in calm. Imagine the silence of those chambers, now cool, hushed, eternal. There is no sound but your breath, no movement but the slow dance of silt settling onto the bones of the ship. It's peaceful here, the kind of peaceful that only comes from deep time, from stillness that has lasted longer than memory. You float gently through a corridor once filled with noise. See how the light moves, faint, filtered, blue as a dream. Particles hang suspended, glinting like dust in a sunbeam, though the sun is long above you. It's not cold here, not in the way you imagined. It's enveloping, quiet, soft. A lantern, long dead, still hangs from its hook. A mug rests on a ledge, its handle cracked. Someone must have set it down with the intention to return. And in a way you just did. You're returning now, not to relive, but to remember, to acknowledge, to bear witness in your sleep. Let your mind walk through that still corridor. You are weightless, unburdened. The steel around you no longer groans, it merely exists. The ship, once proud and mighty, is no longer sinking. It has already arrived. This is not tragedy. This is rest. And with that rest comes understanding of the men who worked without fanfare, of the lives lived in the quiet corners of history, of how something as massive as Titanic was powered not just by coal, but by hands, by rhythm, by breath. The firemen were not forgotten, not here, not in this dreaming. Here they are honored by silence, wrapped in it. You pause now in a room where the walls are bowed inward from pressure, and you feel none of it. You are safe, wrapped in thought and sleep. You pass a furnace now home to drifting sea creatures, and it does not alarm you. It has become a garden of rust and light, and it welcomes your gaze. Nothing is sharp here. Nothing is sudden. Everything is softened by time and distance, just like a dream. And as you float further, you come to understand something. The Titanic did not disappear. She transformed. She became something else, not gone, but altered. And in this new form she cradles the memory of every hand that shaped her journey. You are not a tourist here. You are a guest, and the sea, vast and slow and eternal, allows you this passage, so long as you move gently, so long as you remember. Let that remembering wrap you now. Let it draw you closer to sleep. You are not sinking. You are settling, slowly, gently, into the deepest part of the night. The part where dreams are made not of fantasy, but of real things softened by distance. The part where your breath is the only sound. The part where your body knows it can finally rest. Let it rest now. Let it all go. The ship is quiet. The story is safe. And you are drifting deeper still. In the deepest part of your rest, where thoughts no longer form words, but drift like clouds, the Titanic remains, not as a wreck, not as a cautionary tale, but as a shape held gently in the arms of the sea. And you are with her now, floating in her memory. There is no time here, no need to surface, just a slow embrace of stillness. Let that comfort sink into you as the silence deepens. Let your body feel weightless, as though you too are drifting through water, suspended in a dream that holds no urgency. The sea, wide and dark, wraps around the ship like a velvet glove. No waves break here, no voices call, only the gentle, rhythmic sway of current moving through broken corridors, around railings, over long forgotten boots, past doorways where men once stood waiting for orders. Every surface once hot and humming is now cool and still, smoothed by the touch of time and tide. You drift through a hallway now. The walls are curved, the lamps long dark. You glide not with effort, but by letting go. Past a pile of coal bags, past a toolbox lying open, its contents long scattered. Everything is quiet. The ship no longer breathes, but her memory does. It pulses gently in the water, through you, into you. And as you move through these sunken spaces, you feel a connection not of sorrow, but of understanding. These men were workers, yes, but they were also sons, fathers, brothers, lovers. And now they are part of the deep, not lost, just resting. Above, the surface world continues, oblivious. Decades have passed, generations born and buried. But down here, the moment still lingers like a sigh. The ship does not cry out. She simply rests in pieces, her bones stretched across the ocean floor like a sleeping giant. And her heart, her warmth, still flickers in the memory of those who remember. Of you now, breathing calmly in your bed, eyes closed, thoughts soft as driftwood. There's a space you pass through now that might once have been a mess hall. You can almost hear the clink of metal cups, the shuffle of boots, the low murmur of conversation. Not clearly, just the echo of it, like the fading scent of wood smoke in an empty cabin. Someone once laughed here. Someone once sat with a piece of bread and told a story from home. Those stories don't vanish. They settle into the walls, the floor, the water. They remain. And now you pause, hovering in the quiet. You've reached what once was the heart of it all, a great boiler room, the largest on the ship. Once it thundered with heat and energy. Now it lies in gentle ruin. Its furnace doors hang open like yawning mouths. The floor is warped, but still holds its shape. You imagine the men who stood here, young, old, faces lined with soot, arms muscled from labor, hands blistered but steady. You don't see ghosts. There are none here, only impressions, like footprints in soft clay, the memory of movement, the suggestion of breath, a sensation of presence without fear. These were not men who fled. These were men who stayed. You feel a pressure in your chest, not fear, not sadness, something deeper, a soft, glowing warmth, gratitude, perhaps, or awe, or the sacred hush that comes from standing in the last trace of something holy. This was holy in its own way, not religious, but real. Hard work done in impossible conditions, lives given without spectacle, endings met with quiet. And now their silence has become your comfort. It wraps around you, slowing your heart, softening your thoughts. You are floating still, drifting deeper into sleep, held in this gentle underworld of steel and time. Even the water seems to pause for you, to flow around you instead of against, to whisper, not roar. You have become a guest of the deep, and here, in this suspended world, you are safe. Completely, utterly safe. The pressure holds you like a hand. The dark is not empty, it is protective. The ship does not mourn. She remembers. And soon you will remember nothing more tonight. Your thoughts are feather-light now, your breath long and slow, your limbs resting without weight. You will not wake with salt in your lungs or steel in your dreams, only with a softness in your bones, a warmth in your heart, and the faint echo of distant engines turned to lullabies. Now be still. Let the drift carry you. The story will remain, waiting whenever you return. The ocean holds it, and so do you. You are deeper now, not just into the sea, but into rest, into that place just between awareness and sleep, where thoughts blur like ink and water, and memories begin to feel like dreams. Here the Titanic is no longer a tragedy. She is a vessel of memory, adrift not on the Atlantic, but on the tides of time itself. You are not just floating beside her wreck, you are gliding through the echo of all she ever was. You pass into what was once a passageway between two boiler rooms. The walls are lined with thick pipes, most long silent now. Once these corridors shook with motion steam roaring through valves, men running with tools, the heavy clang of iron doors opening to swallow coal. Now, only silt and shadow move here. The pipes have grown soft with rust, their hard edges blurred by years of deep water stillness. You reach out, not to touch, but to sense, and you feel not cold metal, but the memory of warmth, the presence of those who once passed through hurrying, sweating, working leaves a kind of imprint, like warmth lingering after a candle is blown out. In the water around you, tiny life forms drift like falling snow. Some glow faintly, others twist gently on unseen currents. None disturb the silence. They have made a home here among the ship's bones, lighting tiny lanterns of bioluminescence in what was once only fire and ash. They are caretakers now, floating peacefully through corridors once packed with noise and heat. It's strange, in a comforting way, how life always returns, even here, in a place born from silence and sorrow. You move slowly into what may have once been the engineer's quarters. Beds bolted to the walls, a small iron stove overturned. One bunk still holds the ghost of a folded coat. A boot lies on its side, laces undone. There is no fear here, no urgency, just the soft hush of objects long left behind, waiting without expectation. These items are no longer relics. They are stories told in stillness. Each carries the shape of someone who once rested, who once believed they would return in the morning. You wonder if anyone ever paused here before the end. Maybe someone leaned over that bunk and said a quiet goodbye. Maybe a name was whispered. Maybe a moment of prayer was offered in the seconds before the tilt became too steep to ignore. Maybe not. The sea does not tell us these details, but it holds them somewhere in the folds of its silence. Above, far above, ice floats where once only sky stretched. The surface world remembers the iceberg, the chaos, the lifeboats, the orchestra. But below, far below, this part of the story endures in a different form. It does not shout. It does not warn. It simply rests. Now your breath has slowed. It matches the motion of the deep, a gentle rise and a softer fall. You are safe in this slowness. You are not thinking anymore, not in words. You are feeling, sensing, letting the story soak into you like warm water over tired skin. Each detail is a weightless thread wrapping you in stillness. You drift past a lantern, still fixed to the wall. Its glass is cracked, but its shape remains whole. It hasn't burned in over a century, but somehow it seems to glow, not with fire, but with memory. The memory of hundreds of nights lit not for show, but for work, for safety, for comfort. The kind of light that men depended on when the fires were at full burn and the air was thick with heat and ash. That light once held the darkness back. Now it invites it in, gently, peacefully. And now you pause, not from fear, but because you've reached the quietest place of all. A small chamber, perhaps once a break room, perhaps once nothing at all, a space between spaces, 4 walls, a ceiling, a floor, everything soft with age and water. It's here that the silence becomes complete. No movement, no echo, just a gentle pressure, like being wrapped in a blanket of dark silk. Let this be the heart of your rest. No more images, no more motion, just presence, stillness. You are not falling asleep. You are falling inward, deeper into comfort, deeper into calm. The story has taken you far, but now it hands you back to your breath, to your pulse, to the warmth of your own stillness. The workers have laid down their tools. The ship has laid down her weight, and you may lay down your thoughts. This is not the end. This is the drift, the float, the letting go. Stay here as long as you wish. This is the deepest quiet, the one that only arrives when all tasks are done, when all stories have been whispered to the dark, and there's nothing left to carry but peace. The Titanic rests here not in ruin, but in repose. Her journey has become stillness, and within that stillness, the heartbeat of her people echoes soft and steady, like ripples over the seafloor. And you, wrapped in that echo, are floating too through history, through memory, through time smoothed by water into lullaby. Let the silence bloom in your mind like ink dropped into calm tea. You are no longer tracing corridors or watching shadows pass across riveted steel. You are part of the stillness now. There is no need for thought, no pressure to hold on to names or faces or the slow ticking of time. Let all of that dissolve. What remains is the weightless presence of story of meaning that lingers long after the last word is spoken. In this moment, you are more than a listener. You are the dreamer the ship waited for, the one who came not to marvel at tragedy or chase ghosts, but to remember gently, to keep company with the past in the quietest way by breathing alongside it, slowly and without fear. Far above, waves move with moonlight, but down here, the deep holds its breath. No need to stir, no need to rise. The great vessel is settled into the seabed like a sleeping whale, its hull curled into the ocean floor, its bones given over to time and tide. And time has not been unkind. It has softened the edges, erased the violence. What remains is reverent. What remains is memory softened to a whisper. And there's something beautiful in that, isn't there? The idea that even disaster can become gentle, that even loss can become peace, that every sound, every coal shovel's clang, every engine room footstep, every breath of fire and steam can be folded into silence, so complete it becomes music. And that music can lull someone 100 years later into sleep. Your body now floats in the same rhythm, not across water, but across rest. Every limb loose, every thought low and slow. You are surrounded not by darkness, but by the soft pressure of safety, the knowledge that everything loud has gone quiet, and that you have followed. Picture now not the ship as it once was, but the way it exists in memory, outlines glowing faintly in the deep, soft trails of silt drifting like snow. Not lost, not broken, just resting, just remembering. The men who labored below have long stopped breathing, but their rhythm remains. It beats gently in the ocean's pulse. It rocks you now like a hammock strung between time and sleep. Their strength becomes your calm. Their quiet becomes your silence. And in this place, so far from fear, so far from noise, you are safe. Let the last images dissolve now. Let the boilers fade. Let the bulkheads blur. Let the echo of footsteps grow softer and softer until they vanish completely into the hush. All that remains is breath, and stillness, and warmth. You don't need to surface. You don't need to wake. The sea will hold you a while longer, as long as you like. You are not sinking. You are simply letting go. Let the weight of wakefulness slip from your shoulders. Let your jaw soften. Let your chest rise and fall. There's nothing else to do. You've come to the end of the tale, but not the end of your rest. You can stay here, in this place, as long as you wish. The story sleeps now, and so do you. Good night. And now, as you drift at the edge of sleep, let the story exhale with you, in through your nose and out. Like the rise and fall of distant tides, the tale is no longer unfolding. It has folded itself around you. Like a warm quilt stitched together from echoes, it rests gently across your shoulders and your chest. There is nothing more to know, only the comfort of what has already been shared and what now softly lingers. The Titanic's final hours have passed. The firemen, the stokers, the trimmers, the engineers, each has finished his task. And in their silence, something beautiful remains. Not loss, not fear, but presence. A presence so quiet, so steady, that it feels like a heartbeat beneath the ocean floor. And you followed that beat gently, slowly, all the way down beneath the headlines and the heroics, into the deeper, quieter part of the tale. The part most people never hear. But you heard it, you felt it, and now you carry it with you. Not in your hands, not in your mind, but in the rhythm of your breath, and in the heaviness of your eyelids. There's no need to hold on to it tightly. Like the sea, it's always there, surrounding, supporting, remembering. Let your mind drift backward through the journey, not with effort, but like tracing your fingers through calm water. Remember the engine rooms, their orange glow, the clang and hiss of machinery, the deep warmth. The men moving in unison like a living engine, coal dust in their hair, and the weight of duty in their shoulders. Let that memory settle into your bones now, not as noise, but as a lullaby in the language of steam. Then, the first moment the cold crept in, the strange quiet, the sudden stillness of machinery that had once throbbed with life, the way silence arrived like snowfall, undeniable, and how the men responded not with panic, but with poise. Calm hands turning valves, quiet footsteps in sloshing water, a final shovel of coal fed not for survival, but for light for the passengers above who would need to see to find their way. You may remember one stoker who stood longer than the rest, who touched the wall with one hand as if saying goodbye, or another who passed a lantern up through a hatch, pausing only to nod at the child who took it. These moments, they did not make the history books, but they live here now in the still places inside you where dreams begin. They float just below the surface of sleep, like memories you never lived, but somehow know by heart. You are not alone here. The silence is full. It wraps around you not as emptiness, but as presence, as weightless as drifting silt, as soft as worn linen. The ship may be broken, but in dreams she's whole again. Not sailing, not rushing, just resting. A great cathedral of steel and story, deep below the waves, holding the memory of every hand that ever touched her. And you are floating inside that cathedral now. Imagine the ship as it once was, not in motion, but in spirit. A single glowing thread stretched between hands and voices, between effort and pride. The luxury of first class may have dazzled the eye, but it was the unseen hands below, the workers, the firemen, the boys with soot on their sleeves, who made the heartbeat of the Titanic. Their story, once buried, now rises in you like breath in the dark. And now your breath grows even slower, softer, like distant waves brushing against an unseen shore. You are almost entirely adrift, now adrift, not in danger, but in peace. Let the silence deepen. Let the memory fade into warmth. There is no longer a need to trace each detail. The ship has been remembered, the workers honored, the fire gone out, and in the stillness they left behind, something beautiful now rests in you. Not a haunting, not a sadness, but a calm understanding, the kind of understanding that settles in your chest like a soft weight, warm and welcome. It says, you were there. You bore witness. You kept the quiet part of the story alive. Let it live there now in your ribs, not as a thought, but as a hum. Let it soothe you like the rocking of deep water, like the hush of steam winding down, like a lullaby written in rust and shadow and honor. You have nothing to do now but rest. You are already resting. There is no more journey to make. There is only the drift. And now as you drift at the edge of sleep, let the story exhale with you, in through your nose and out, like the rise and fall of distant tides. The tale is no longer unfolding. It has folded itself around you. Like a warm quilt stitched together from echoes, it rests gently across your shoulders and your chest. There is nothing more to know, only the comfort of what has already been shared and what now softly lingers. The Titanic's final hours have passed. The firemen, the stokers, the trimmers, the engineers, each has finished his task. And in their silence, something beautiful remains. Not loss, not fear, but presence. A presence so quiet, so steady, that it feels like a heartbeat beneath the ocean floor. And you followed that beat, gently, slowly, all the way down beneath the headlines and the heroics, into the deeper, quieter part of the tale, the part most people never hear. But you heard it, you felt it, and now you carry it with you, not in your hands, not in your mind, but in the rhythm of your breath and in the heaviness of your eyelids. There's no need to hold on to it tightly. Like the sea, it's always there, surrounding, supporting, remembering. Let your mind drift backward through the journey, not with effort, but like tracing your fingers through calm water. Remember the engine rooms, their orange glow, the clang and hiss of machinery, the deep warmth, the men moving in unison like a living engine, coal dust in their hair and the weight of duty in their shoulders. Let that memory settle into your bones now, not as noise but as a lullaby in the language of steam. Then, the first moment the cold crept in, the strange quiet, the sudden stillness of machinery that had once throbbed with life. The way silence arrived like snowfall, slow, undeniable, and how the men responded not with panic, but with poise. Calm hands turning valves, quiet footsteps in sloshing water. A final shovel of coal fed not for survival, but for light for the passengers above, who would need to see to find their way. You may remember one stoker who stood longer than the rest, who touched the wall with one hand as if saying goodbye, or another who passed a lantern up through a hatch, pausing only to nod at the child who took it. These moments, they did not make the history books, but they live here now in the still places inside you where dreams begin. They float just below the surface of sleep, like memories you never lived, but somehow know by heart. You are not alone here. The silence is full. It wraps around you not as emptiness, but as presence, as weightless as drifting silt, as soft as worn linen. The ship may be broken, but in dreams she's whole again, not sailing, not rushing, just resting. A great cathedral of steel and story, deep below the waves, holding the memory of every hand that ever touched her. And you are floating inside that cathedral now. Imagine the ship as it once was, not in motion, but in spirit. A single glowing thread stretched between hands and voices, between effort and pride. The luxury of first class may have dazzled the eye, but it was the unseen hands below, the workers, the firemen, the boys with soot on their sleeves, who made the heartbeat of the Titanic. Their story, once buried, now rises in you like breath in the dark, and now your breath grows even slower, softer, like distant waves brushing against an unseen shore. You are almost entirely adrift, now adrift, not in danger but in peace. Let the silence deepen. Let the memory fade into warmth. There is no longer a need to trace each detail. The ship has been remembered, the workers honored, the fire gone out, and in the stillness they left behind, something beautiful now rests in you. Not a haunting, not a sadness, but a calm understanding, the kind of understanding that settles in your chest like a soft weight, warm and welcome. It says you were there, you bore witness, you kept the quiet part of the story alive. Let it live there now in your ribs, not as a thought, but as a hum. Let it soothe you like the rocking of deep water, like the hush of steam winding down, like a lullaby written in rust and shadow and honor. You have nothing to do now but rest. You are already resting. There is no more journey to make. There is only the drift. There's a hush now, not the kind that follows fear, but the kind that comes when everything that needed to be said has been said. The final coal has been shoveled. The last boots have stepped away from the furnace. The sea has taken what it came for, not with violence, but with a patient kind of reverence. And you drifting now between thought and dream are gently rocked by that same rhythm. No longer a visitor in the story, but a sleeper within it. You may find that your mind wants to wander once more, to skim back across those heavy footsteps on steel floors, the clang of iron doors, the glowing furnace heat. Let it. Let those moments pass like drifting ships, silent on a midnight ocean. You are not anchored to any one scene. You are floating above them all now, slowly, safely further and further from the weight of history, and closer to something even deeper, understanding without needing words. Remember the names if you wish, the ones never printed in grand books or carved into marble. James, Arthur, Silas. Maybe names you've never heard, or names you carry in your own family. Or maybe no names at all, just the echo of a hand holding a shovel, the flicker of a lamp being raised, the hush of breath drawn in one last time, not in fear, but in peace. Those memories don't disappear. They don't dissolve. They simply settle. Just like you're settling now, the deeper you go, the quieter it gets. That silence becomes a blanket, warm and weightless, tucking itself around you, and you begin to forget why you ever needed noise, why you ever chased motion. Everything is still here, and everything still is here. There is no urgency in memory, no schedule in the sea. The ship, now resting like a cathedral beneath the waves, hums not with engines, but with stillness. A stillness that knows you. You pass now through the final part of the dream, where structure gives way to shadow, where steel becomes dust and silt rises like breath. It is not eerie. It is not dark in the way you once feared the ocean might be. It is soft and endless and full of space for sleep. Here you feel the pull not of gravity, but of letting go. There's no resistance left in you, no worry, no need. The sea is not cruel. It keeps what it takes in the same way your breath keeps dreams. It cradles them. It shelters them from noise. And the men who once labored in heat and shadow are now part of that shelter. Not lost, not forgotten, simply returned to the quiet. The Titanic in her final form is not made of steel anymore. Not in this place, not in this telling. She is made of stillness, of echoes, of soft shapes worn smooth by time, of stories told slowly, lovingly, like lullabies. The kind of story that never needs an ending, because it folds itself back into you every time you sleep. So sleep now. You've gone far. You've listened well. You've followed the echoes down through fire and silence, all the way into rest. You don't have to rise again tonight. The surface will wait. The stars will keep watch. The world will go on spinning. But here, in this pocket of memory and sea, you are safe. You are allowed to stop, to float, to drift. And as you do, the last lights of the ship, those soft, flickering gas lamps, wink out one by one, not in fear, not in haste, but like candles gently pinched between fingers. All the stories have been tucked in, and so have you. Let yourself go deeper, now beneath thought, beneath memory, beneath even the rhythm of your breath. Let the sea rock you not in waves, but in stillness, not in motion, but in presence. The Titanic is no longer a ship in your mind. It has become a soft place like the quietest chamber of a cathedral. lit only by dreamlight. You are lying in that chamber now, as the hush of history closes gently around you. You may find yourself thinking of the ones who stayed behind, the stokers, the firemen, the coal trimmers who never reached the lifeboats. It's okay. Let them pass through your thoughts like mist through trees. They are not suffering now. They are not frozen in fear. Time has wrapped them in reverence, and in this deep place they have become something else, an eternal rhythm of labor, of purpose, of quiet courage. You are not haunted by them. You are calmed by them. A soft echo drifts up a memory of one final shift. A fireman bends to lift a coal scuttle, the air already thick with heat. The engines have stopped, but his movements are the same, steady, practiced, respectful. He is not afraid. He is committed. He wipes sweat from his brow and walks toward the furnace, not because he must, but because it is what he knows. That moment, his final one, is not grand. It is grounded, human, and it remains, even now, in the still water below you. Let that image warm you. Let it be your hearth fire. Around you now, the wreck is only suggestion. Shapes softened by time. Rooms that feel like dreams half remembered. The cold no longer touches you. The water no longer weighs. You float between beams and passageways, not as a visitor, but as part of the dream. The ship opens itself to you, not with creaks and groans, but with open arms. She is not mourning. She is not proud. She simply exists, and in her quiet she asks nothing of you. This is how stories should end, not with noise, but with hush. Not with urgency, but with breath. Let the weight of all you've heard settle over your chest now, not like a burden, but like a warm quilt. You have taken this journey as only a dreamer can with open ears and a soft heart. You do not carry the story. The story carries you, and now the last echoes begin to fade. The clang of the furnace door is distant. The rush of coal into the pit is a memory. Even the footsteps, once so clear, are now only faint imprints in water. You are not sinking. You are dissolving into sleep. The ship sleeps with you. You are not drifting away. You are arriving to a place where breath is slow and thought is soft, and your body is finally allowed to rest. Even if your eyes are still open, your mind has begun to close the door. Thought by thought, the day disappears behind you like lights vanishing down a hallway. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to reach for. The stillness has found you. The workers rest now. The ship rests now. You rest now. All as it should be. And above, far, far above, the stars have not moved. They still shimmer in silence. They still keep watch. And tonight, their light reaches you not through clouds, but through dreams. So dream now. Dream deeply. And know that this quiet belongs to you. And so we return, not to the beginning, but to the rhythm. That slow, ocean-deep rhythm that pulses beneath every word you've heard, every corridor you've wandered, every ember you imagined flickering in the dark. The story has grown quiet, now not ended, not forgotten, just quieter, like the breath of someone asleep beside you, present, soft, steady. You feel it in your chest, don't you? That pulse, not quite yours, not quite the ship's, but something shared, something older, something slow and good. It moves through you now like warm current through still water. You've stopped moving, but you're not still. You're humming low and deep with everything that has been remembered. The ship lies in the dark, cradled in mud and memory. You see her not as she sank, but as she sleeps settled, soft and sacred. Her sharpness has faded. Her scars have been smoothed. She no longer groans or breaks. She sighs, and in that sigh is every voice that once called her name. You've heard that sigh tonight. You've breathed it in, and now it breathes with you. Imagine her now not as iron and disaster, but as a place of rest. A deep, gentle resting place where men who labored without name are at peace. No longer bent to the shovel, no longer called by bells or orders. Their work is done, their stories heard, their silence honored, and yes, you have helped in that remembering, not loudly, not boldly, but gently, in the way one speaks before sleep, in the way one listens without interrupting. That's all they ever needed. That's all any story needs, to be held, to be kept, to be heard in the dark. You are still now deeper than ever, wrapped in the hum of memory and water. Even your breath has become quieter, softer, like the slow rise of mist over the sea before dawn. You don't need to open your eyes. You don't need to move. The world will wait. Time will wait. Everything will wait for you here in this place just a little longer. Let yourself float. Float through the rusted doorway. Float past the ladders and the rails. Float beneath the place where the boilers once burned. Float until there's nothing but the hum. Until even the shapes of memory begin to dissolve into the black-blue silk of sleep. The fire's out. The tools are down. The voices are gone. But the warmth remains. You are not cold. You are not alone. You are part of it now. The rhythm, the hush, the memory, the sea. Sleep now. And if you wake again hours from now, you'll carry the quiet with you. Not as weight, but as warmth. Not as noise, but as knowing. You were there. You listened. You rested where few ever have, deep below the surface, in the softest parts of the past. And now you're almost gone to dreams. Only one more step, one more breath, one last drift. As you float gently towards sleep, imagine the ocean above you, vast and endless, cradling the Titanic's memory with the tenderness of a lullaby. The waves sing soft songs, ancient and slow, carrying whispers of a time long past, but never forgotten. Each ripple carries a breath of peace, and each breath you take draws you deeper into that quiet calm. The ship, once alive with clanging metal and pounding hearts, now rests beneath layers of sea and silence. Her story no longer races with urgency, but unfolds like a gentle wave rolling ashore, soft, steady, and full of quiet grace. She is not lost. She is transformed, part of the sea's endless rhythm, a heartbeat beneath the waves. You are part of that rhythm now, too. Your breath aligns with the ebb and flow of the ocean's gentle sway. Your body sinks deeper into comfort, heavier yet lighter at once, as if you are floating between worlds, between wakefulness and dreams, between memory and rest. Feel the softness of the water wrapping around you, the cool embrace that soothes every muscle, every thought. Let it carry away the last fragments of tension, the last echoes of the day's noise, until only peace remains. You are safe here, held, cradled, free. The voices of the men who labored below decks, their steady footsteps and whispered farewells, are now part of the ocean's song. They have become lullabies, humming gently through the water, guiding you deeper into sleep. There's no sorrow here, only respect. No fear, only the calm acceptance that comes from understanding. Let your mind drift with the waves. Let your thoughts slow to a gentle pulse, a steady rhythm that matches the quiet heartbeat of the sea. You are not rushing. You are not struggling. You are floating softly, serenely into the warm embrace of rest. In this moment, the Titanic story is yours, not as a burden, but as a gift, a quiet companion to carry with you into dreams. You carry the memory of courage, of quiet strength, and of peaceful endings. You carry the honor of those who worked in shadows, their stories shining now like stars beneath the water. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath slows to the softest sigh, know that you are ready to let go completely. The world outside fades away. The sea holds you gently. The story rests in your heart. Sleep well. Dream deeply. You are safe. You are at peace. Good night.